If I haven't already said so, I'm Chuck Scimeca. I'm the Commissioner of Nevada County. The team is made up of several people that have been out here, not only building the trail to the monument, which is just under this oak tree, but doing boundary survey. For the last 3.5+ years, it's going to go on to 4 years pretty soon. So we didn't give up, thanks to a lot of key players. It should have been easy, but this one was a challenge, but it was a learning experience. So we developed a metal detecting unit to do the survey, to find our home site, which is under that large oak tree over there, and surrounding several outbuildings. We were able to define those through aerial photography and through a metal detecting and just looking and looking and looking. Then we had to do a boundary survey that was required by California Fish and Wildlife, and that took several months to put together because we didn't have the money. I went and asked Supervisor Hook if she could ask the county if they would pay for it, but it was far, far too expensive. And then I think it was Commissioner, I don't know whose idea it was. Let me think. Bruce Boyd. Commissioner Bruce Boyd is an architect on our commission, happens to be an architect, and he went to Nevada State Engineering and talked to Andy Casano. So he was one of the very good gentlemen that helped us that day. That's Andy Casano sitting right there with the ball cap on. He managed to direct me and the team where to look for boundaries. I think that's what they're called, boundary marks. I had not a clue, but we were fortunate. We found at least 3 of them, so we were able to establish what they needed to do a legal survey, and then we were rolling, and we were able to designate this after the many years that I just mentioned. Now, to introduce the team itself, was made up of Steve Fry, who's in the crowd somewheres, right there in the orange vest. Steve Fry has been a constant help to us throughout all of our endeavors on the Landmarks Commission. He is, I call him the stonemason extraordinaire. He is our lead point person when we put up a monument or a plaque on a granite boulder or whatever it may be. He's always there giving us advice and assistance and lending his direct hand in doing the work. When you get a chance, look at the binders I brought. It'll show you pictures of everything I just mentioned. It'll show you pictures of us doing the survey, of mounting the plaques, and what it took to do these things. There's also a nice story of Joseph Kneebone and Mary Reed, how they met in little town of Karen. Remind me of the little town. Went up in Cornwall. And yeah, the Trefellin farm. So, and what we like to say is that Joseph married the farmer's daughter, is what I think the family likes to refer it as. They did have Andrew Kneebone shortly after they were married. He was the oldest son, born sometime in 1860, I believe. So we just talked about Andrew Kneebone's home down the road, and now we're at Joseph, the patriarch's home. In any event, Joseph Kneebone came to California from Cornwall, acquired eventually about 1,600 acres of ranch land near the old town of Spenceville. Together with his sons Andrew and Joseph, you might say Joe Jr., but Joseph, his son, they drove upwards of 20 mule-team wagons using the jerk line. We can talk about that more later, but that was a unique way of handling a lot of mules in a line, upwards of 2 or more wagons in tandem. They followed many times the old Hennis Pass Road, and it got as far as the Comstock Strike in Virginia City. The many times they would leave Wheatland on their way, Sacramento as well, through Nevada City and on up. The Kneebone Teamsters were well known in the Nevada County area as some of the finest handlers of a team anywheres. So on June 3rd, 2025, the Board of Supervisors officially designated this the Kneebone Ranch and Cemetery, County Landmark 2506. 0625. Joseph Kneebone Sr. again, was a hardworking individual, and he did have a lot of family tragedy, which you're probably well aware of, that I could go into now. But the reality is that we have about 5 of the family members buried on the hill overlooking the monument here. We'll point that out in a minute, and that part of the story as well. Going further, Joe Jr. was tragically murdered at 23 years of age in 1888 on the old Spenceville Road, which this is, halfway between here and probably Penn Valley. Not sure exactly where. And regrettably, his father, almost 20 years later, was also regrettably killed halfway between the residence and the barn site that's right about there. And later, if you have time and you want to walk out to the other monument that's adjacent to the gravesite, you'll see a very fine story written by the Kneebone family on that plaque. What I do want to say now is I want to thank Andy Casano, Chris Ward, Steve Fry, Torben Erickson. Torben there in the red jacket. You already met Steve Fry. These are all members of the team that participated. Pam Scimeca, Daniel Scimeca, and Bruce Boyd, Jerry Martini, Mike Coaches on camera, and many others that worked out here on the ranch. I want to thank in particular the spearhead of this adventure in many ways is Karen Hill of Atlanta, Georgia. Karen is right there. Along with her industrious cousin, Terry Kneebone, somewhere's out there. There he is. Of Grand Junction or thereabouts, Colorado. Tell me the name of the town again. Cedar Edge. Got it. 60 miles south of Grand Junction. Karen was also the applicant on this project with the state, and much of the research that was accomplished was through her efforts and her genealogy research. Also, many of the historic photos were both Karen's and Terry's that you'll see in these albums that I brought for you to take a look at today. Karen and Terry have an obvious love of history and a love of family to have persevered over these last 3.5 years. It's been quite emotional, I believe, for both of them. Going on, I want to mention that both Spenceville and the Bridgeport ranches are tied together at the hip. We have the descendant Andrew marrying the hotel owner's daughter at Bridgeport, and that's Victoria Cole. I can't remember the year. Can anybody remember the year? Okay, I guess it's not all that important, but to them it was. They were married, and they had fine, strong boys, no girls, and they lived in the house that I mentioned just down the road. They lived all their lives there, and Victoria died there, and I think Andrew Kneebone moved to Bridgeport just a few years after she passed away and died at Bridgeport. I have an emotional interest and tie to this as well, because I'm a retired California State Park Ranger, and I work with many of the Kneebone descendants over the years, some of which have passed on, of course, and I was always doing my best efforts to tell their story, and I wanted to conclude the story here today to make sure that everybody knew what value this family had to Nevada County, and how they everything is tied one way or another. So Bridgeport is tied at the hip with Spenceville. In fact, we have two cemeteries. We have the cemetery at Bridgeport, and we now know about the cemetery here in Spenceville. With that, I was hoping Mark Carroll would be here because I want to definitely mention his name. Yeah, Mark Carroll is the Fish and Wildlife Manager that manages the Spenceville Wildlife Area. He is the point person that hung in with us the entire way over all these years, provided a huge backhoe to move this boulder to create the monument that's out by the graveyard. On Thursday morning, he rolled in that bathroom that's over there. I can go on and on about Mark Carroll. Mark, are you here? He is not here, but we do have a certificate of award for him that I will track him down someday and give it to him. With that said, I'd like to ask Terry Kneebone to say a couple words if he doesn't mind. And I'm not going to forget Karen either. Is that all right? Got to get it on the camera. I know you do.
All right. Okay. Do I have to go all the way back? It's hard to get close to people I'd like to get close to people I'm talking to. I can't go into the history, and I won't even try in the presence of my cousin Karen and Chuck. That would be silly. I'd like to talk a little bit about my personal connections here and why this means so much to me. I wasn't born in Nevada County. I wasn't born in California. I wasn't born in this country. Came here at the age of 3, a refugee from the war with my mother, father, and sister. And we had nothing. Well, we came here because this was home. This is where my father and his ancestors were born and raised. And because it would nurture us. And it did until we were back on our feet and my father went back overseas to work in the mines. As a proper Cornishman, he thought he should be mining, and he did his entire life. And then we continued to come back. And it's kind of my story is one of coming back again and again and again. We came back every home leave. When we came home here. We came home to family. We came home to the land. We came home even here. In the time I was about 7 years old, I remember the first time my father brought me out here. We came out here, and I don't remember if we drove up or walked up or what. But I didn't focus on those things those days. But I remember always going up to the cemetery and looking at the names, and we could read them in those days. And then every single home leave after that until I came back to the States to go to college. And I lived in Grass Valley in the summers with my grandmother. And we came down here. We went to Bridgeport all the time. So those are burned into my memory. And then when I was married and started my career, again overseas, and every home leave we would come back here, and we would come back and visit family and visit the land and visit these places. And we got in here every chance we got. And after I retired, we settled down in Colorado, and we came back every year at least once, again to visit family, but to visit the land. And we visited here when we could get in. It's a little more complicated than getting into Bridgeport. We went to Bridgeport all the time. And now I come back every year, and I go to Bridgeport to visit my parents, my wife, and 2 children who are all buried at Bridgeport. And where I will be at some point in the future, my name's already there, so I don't have an option. But so I didn't spend very much time in total living here, but this has always been home. And what makes it home is the people who are alive here and the people who are ancestors who are buried here. It's a connection that I feel very, very strongly. I'm eternally grateful to my great-great-grandfather Joseph and Mary, who took that enormous step of leaving a home and back over that family who'd been for I don't know how long, and came to an unknown land, to an unknown future, and they made a future. They made, as Chuck so aptly described, they made an impact in this area. They we're part of what has made Nevada County, California, what it is. I'm extremely proud of them for that. I'm also enormously thankful to Chuck and everybody who made this happen, who is giving them the recognition that I, of course, think they deserve. So that's sort of the story comes back to the home, back to the same place, back to the roots. I feel my roots here very, very deeply, and this day is very important to me. Wonderful to see you all here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. We have three great grandchildren here today. We have Leonard Ferretti. I think you're a great. Okay. And of course, Karen Hill, another great. And I'd like to ask, Karen, would you like to say a few words next?
Is this working? Okay. Hi. I just wanted to say a few things. I grew up in Dixon and Sacramento and left California on a corporate transfer back east when I was 35. But this has always been what I consider home. My grandmother sat me down when I was 12 years old, and I asked her, what can you tell me about our family? And I still have the piece of paper where she wrote down all the names that she could remember about the family, where they all came from. So I've had a deep appreciation and connection to the Kneebone Ranch. We come out here when I was a child, and I'm sort of a family historian. I'm a genealogist. So I gathered information over all these years, and someone connected with me 3.5 years ago and said, "Hey, do you want to work with me on this project?" It's like, of course. And it was a journey that I never anticipated that we'd be here 3.5 years ago. I'm here now with everyone that's here and cousins I've never met and extended family that have come in from all over the country. I'm so grateful that you all have the interest. You're here, you care about the project, and that we can pass it down to our kids. This was a collaboration between not only Chuck and I, but California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the community commissioners, the Historic Society, Searles Library, Landmarks Commission, Department of Indian Affairs. We had to get an authorization to go ahead with the project because they wanted to make sure there was nothing spiritual about the property that we had to be careful of. So many people had a piece of this, Steve. We're so grateful that, there was probably never a meeting at the community supervisors without having us on your agenda. And there were times when after 3 years of this going on, it's like, Chuck, this is just never going to happen. I'm losing hope. And he was always like, we're working hard. Don't give up. We're still working for it. So I'm so so I'm so grateful, to everyone who's here. No one more. Mark Carroll, of course, who's the Spenceville wildlife, he's not here, but he was the one that brought the tractor out and found a big enough boulder, took it up to the grave so we could mount the plaque on it. Sorry, Steve. Thank you.
He never saw a more beautiful boulder.
Well, I actually got a photograph of a selection of boulders. Like, which one would you like? So, thank you. Amazing. Sue, how she is. Sue's born here. She still continues to ranch in the valley, and you are a cheerleader through the whole thing. So, we appreciate you standing by it the entire time. And he did the surveying when we couldn't find a way to fund a professional surveyor to come out, and the whole project was falling apart. Andy came out and surveyed the property for us, which one of the stumbling blocks that we had in getting this through. And Torben, where's Torben? Torben was here every step of the way. Anytime I talked to her about it, this is our history. It's our family history. It's also California's history. And it's a history that will pass down to our families. And you'll say, yeah, this place you need to visit. It's a ranch. Thank you. Okay, get your mic back.
Thank you, Karen. Leonard, would you like to say something? You want to say a lot or just a little?
My mom, my uncle, and my grandma, and they'd be very proud to see this happen. Especially my mom. She shaved every bit of history she could for years. Yeah, right. I remember that we got together after a few years, and you were just driving, and you said, "Yeah, you're retired." I was at your retirement. But my mom, and especially because she said, yeah, yeah, but they would love to be here. Fortunately, they can. Thank you very much, everybody that put the effort into this.
Really has a lot of fine records that Leonard has now have allowed the Historic Society to scan, and that is, of course, the group that Dakota represents that's here today. We look forward to looking at that online once it's finished. It's just about complete. Yeah. Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Or do you want to get out of the rain? Okay. We wanted to unveil the main monument plaque, which is just up this little gravel trail underneath that large oak tree. So I'm going to ask Terry Kneebone to lead anybody up there that would like to go. And just take your time. And Terry will go ahead and take off the tarp on the plaque as a, I don't know what you want to call it, but I think it's appropriate. And it's the green one over there, yes. Go ahead. You go ahead. What's that?
This is nice to have this flower.
Yeah.
Wait for Karen to get here. I have to wait for you to be
Yeah,
here.
it's fine. I
Careful.
just haven't seen it yet.
Watch your. Well, God, like launching a ship. Again, thank you all for being here. It's just an enormously meaningful experience for all of us cousins here and everybody related and friends. Yeah, I find it hard to come up with the appropriate words to express the emotions I feel at seeing our ancestors honored this way, in a permanent way, and of you all being here. They're honoring them, and it's wonderful. Yeah, I get a little choked up about that. Karen, do you want to say something? Okay. Yeah. Well, with that said, let's show the plaque. Yeah, hold it still. So I can read that? Kneebone Ranch and Cemetery. Joseph Kneebone came to California from Cornwall, England in 1867, acquired this 1,595-acre ranch in the historic town of Spenceville, and started a very successful teaming business. From the 1860s to 1890s, he and his sons, Andrew and Joseph, drove 20 mule-team wagons from Wheatland to Virginia City using the jerk line to lead one lead animal following the old Hennis Path Road. Joseph's wife, Mary Martin Kneebone, arrived in Spenceville in 1871 with 3 of their children, William, Joseph Reed, and Esther. The eldest child, Andrew Reed Kneebone, remained in England to complete his education. Andrew, arrived in Spenceville in 1875. On the hill overlooking the Kneebone Ranch are buried 5 of the original pioneer Kneebone family members. Joseph Kneebone, wife Mary Martin Kneebone, Joseph Reed Kneebone, Richard Kneebone, and Mary Kneebone. And it carries the appropriate certification of where it comes from. It's landmark registered by Nevada County, June 3, 2025, Nevada 25-06, plaque dedicated 2025 by the Nevada County Historical Landmarks Commission in cooperation with Karen Hill on behalf of the Kneebone family. And thank you all.
Did a good job. Well, now it's up to you guys when you want to go back. If you want to stay longer, we'll have a shuttle waiting for you to take you back. If you want to take the time and traverse a little distance, of course, you can see the cement burial site, and you can go take a look at that plaque as well. So with that, we're adjourned. Thank you. The Kneebone Family Cemetery. Life was hard and often cruel on the frontier. Joseph's namesake son was murdered driving his freight wagon home after delivering goods to the mines in the high country, while his son Richard drowned in the farm's pond at the age of 2. Mary and their new baby died in childbirth, only a few years after that loss. Joseph himself was murdered at the family home some years later.